Please welcome Jonathan Dart, British Consul General and Director General of United Kingdom Trade and Investment Canada, discussing foreign direct investment and how Canadian mining companies can benefit from working with British companies in financial services. S'il vous plaît, veuillez accueillir Jonathan Dart, Consul général de la Grande-Bretagne, Directeur général de Commerce et Investissement Canada Royaume-Uni, qui discutera d'investissements directs étrangers et des avantages pour les compagnies minières de faire affaire avec les compagnies de services financiers britanniques.
Well, thanks very much. I'd like to offer a special thanks to the municipality of Greenstone, particularly Ron Beaulieu and his team there, and also say what an honour it is to speak here in the traditional lands of the Fort William First Nations. I'm going to be talking about the UK, predictably, and how foreign direct investment can affect this region and what role the UK will have in delivering that. If I could just ask for the first slide to be put up. Okay, Business is Great Britain. This is part of our great campaign. On St Patrick's Day, we should also add that the United Kingdom, of course, consists of Northern Ireland, and it's perhaps a little known fact that there is actually an Ontario mining company which has a mine in Northern Ireland. They're mining for gold, Dalradian, and that's a great connection between the province and the UK. A little bit of background on myself. I grew up in Plymouth in the southwest of England. Plymouth is actually further north, latitude-wise, than Thunder Bay. But because of the Gulf Stream, it's a very mild climate. And in my youth, it only snowed twice. And when I came to Canada, I used to get so excited every time it snowed. And even up to this year, I used to get excited at the snow, but I must say this winter has cured me finally, and I just want to see the back of it and see some spring. A background on what I do. I'm the Director General of UK Trade and Investment, and in that I'm supported by Dana Dickerson. Dana, just stand up so everyone can see you, who works with me at the British Consulate in Toronto. We help British companies to export to Canada, and as a small contribution to that export, I've actually put a bottle of single malt whiskey in the door prize draw, so one of you is going to be enjoying that a little bit later. We also help Canadian companies to set up in the UK, and I was very interested to see that there's a focus here on digital media and software companies, because those are precisely the sort of companies who are setting up in very large numbers in the UK, particularly in the London area, to tap the very large European market. But my talk today is going to focus more on the mining sector, and what I really want to leave you with is the sense that British companies are great companies to partner with. Why is that? Well, they are because we don't have a huge mining sector in the UK. British companies are almost universally the best in the world at what they do, and they're almost universally focused on exporting their services and products. So they are very globally aware. They know what the market globally wants, and they can bring in technologies into Northern Ontario, but also where there are competitive technologies here, they can help get those out to the market. If I could have the next slide, please. We launched just in January this year a UK trade and investment mining campaign. It's the first time we've ever done this. We believe that British companies are not paying enough attention to the whole of Canada, thinking that it's a developed market with few opportunities, and we want to correct that impression. But also, as I mentioned, we want to give Canadian companies enough information about the strengths of the British mining sector for them to realise that it's worth partnering with us. We're across the whole of Canada, and Dana and I lead on Ontario. I mentioned why British companies are competitive. They have to be. You have to be the best to survive in an area where there's very few mines in your own country. We've also got a history of innovation. The UK has historically been a very strong place for research. We have more Nobel Prizes than any other country except for the USA. and we have a very strong university sector, very export orientated. We have been for many centuries. And we also, because anyone who joins the mining sector in the UK knows that they're going to have to go abroad, they're going to have to go to some exciting locations. So we tend to have a very mobile, very outward-looking set of people involved in the industry. Next slide, please. So to my mind, there are three things which you invest in. And I was very pleased to see the theme strengthening roots, because investment really is about pouring water and nutrients onto those roots so that you can grow in the future. The three areas, I think, where you invest. You invest in education. And also really pleased to be speaking to Ron Mellish yesterday, talking about the huge strides that are going ahead in the Greenstone municipality on the education front and the skills front. Really pleased to see that. You can then financially invest, and I'll talk just a very, very little about London as a financial sector. Centre, but then foreign direct investment, and I'll major on that and talk you through some of the strengths of British companies. So first of all, in the education sector, we've got two of the most preeminent mining schools in the world in the UK, where some of the very best mining brains in the world develop. We've got the Camborne School of Mines, set up in 1888, now linked to Exeter University, and of course the Royal School of Mines, set up in 1851, which is linked to, which is part of Imperial College. According to the QS university rankings, Imperial College on its own is the fifth best university in the world. And the Royal School of Mines is renowned throughout the world for producing the very best brains. So if you want to invest in education, want to invest in the roots, recruiting or sending the very best mining brains to those mining schools is a good way to start. The second part of investment, as I mentioned, financial investment. The London Stock Exchange, together with the Australian Stock Exchange, actually has the largest market capitalisation in terms of mining companies of any exchange in the world. If we could just move on to the next slide, you can see there that actually it's the Toronto Stock Exchange, the TSX, which has way more companies than either the Australian or the London Stock Exchange. What does this say? Well, basically that means that the exploration companies, the prospectors, the early developers tend to look to Toronto for that more sort of pioneering, slightly more roulette type finance, the higher risk stuff. But when the companies get bigger and more mature, they turn to the very deep pockets and the institutional capital that is available in London. And that's a transition that we tend to see. It's not across the board. We do have early stage companies in London, and you do have mature companies in Toronto. But I think that's a general theme, that the mature companies tend to look for those deep pockets and those steady international institutional investors to finance their operations. But the bulk of my talk is going to be on foreign direct investment. I'm going to canter very quickly through some of the expertise that you can see in British companies in the mining sector. It's not exhaustive, and I'm going to go over very, very quickly. But I just want to give you a sense of the dynamism and what the UK companies have to offer. And these, I guess, are the companies. These are all exporters, the ones that you want to attract into Canada, and what that will mean. Next slide. What it means, there are very large British companies. Rio Tinto and Anglo-American come to mind. BHP is an Anglo-Australian company which runs a lot of its operations from the UK. These guys don't listen to me when they make their investment decisions. They're big enough and ugly enough to look after themselves, but they are obviously a key focus for your foreign direct investment. Glencore Extract is another one which has a large operation in the UK and is active over here. I guess what you really want are the best companies, though. You want to create those clusters. You want to get the very cutting edge technology and services. It's not just technology. You've got the services, you've got the knowledge, you've got the products there. I think what you have to be aware of when you get the very best companies to set up in your province, they're going to compete with the less competitive companies in your province. That's the downside. I think the upside is that as I said before, they bring that connection to global markets. They bring that ability to recognize where your products or your local products and services are globally competitive, and to really get Canadian and Northern Ontario companies exporting, as we heard this morning from Mike Beliveau. That's exactly what we need to do to safeguard companies here. So quickly running over the type of companies, we've got all types: financial, legal, advisory. You might say, well, what good is a legal company to me? But we have companies in the UK that have 800 years of experience in developing trusts. And when you're setting up a mine, you want to put away money for decommissioning. You don't want that mine at the end of its life to be sold off to a company which then goes bankrupt, leaving you with the decommissioning liabilities. And in the UK, there's an enormous legal expertise in how exactly you put together those sort of trusts. Just an example of how that can be a crucial expertise. Of course, we've got exploration, we've got the environmental assessment and planning. Like Canada, we have very strict environmental laws in the UK, and that leads to a lot of expertise in the environmental assessment and planning area. Energy, water. We are a very tiny island. We're a 40th of the size of Canada with twice the population. We really have to look after our water resources, and we put a lot of money and effort into making sure that that is the case. Energy saving is a huge area, simply because electricity prices in the UK are about 3 times what they are in Ontario. So you can imagine how much more conducive UK companies are to investing in energy saving as a result of that. And then skills, knowledge transfer and research I mentioned. So I'll just go through a few companies. Let me give you an example of Midland Valley. This is a geotechnical company, got an enormous mathematical ability to model, if you like, a bedding plane. A bedding plane like that, which has then been forced by tectonic forces to be crunched up like that, and that's what your mineral deposit looks like. You drill through that, and you've got to try and get a sense of what the shape of the deposit is. In actual fact, what this company does is through mathematical modelling, plan it out, work out where the original shape was, and then go forward and backward in time to work out exactly where the ore is and what the structural stresses are within the mine. It's real cutting edge ability. The next company, Neftex, similar technology but at a global scale. So this looks at the tectonic history over billions of years and works out from that, zeroing down, again with very clever mathematics and algorithms, to exactly where the best places to look for certain deposits are. Real cutting edge technology. ERM, the next one, a water management company. Now, a lot of companies are hydrogeologists, are able to map where water is, where the aquifers are, and what's happening to them. ERM takes that a stage further. It looks at rainfall and snowfall data and looks at an entire catchment area, so it can say with precision what's going to happen to water over days, weeks, months, years, decades and centuries. So there's a huge wealth of experience there. One you might not expect, the Natural History Museum. Again, for hundreds of years they've collected samples of ores from around the world. They've got an unrivaled library. When you're looking at new finds or you're finding something exotic, you can go to them. They'll characterize it. They'll tell you exactly where else it was found, some of the issues around that, geology. A huge amount of expertise at the Natural History Museum. Then we have more sort of mainstream companies like GBM, who will do the whole mine planning, design, engineering, and delivery. This is a picture of the Black Fox Mill complex in Northern Ontario, in Black River, Matheson, which GBM won on a competitive tender, and they've managed and implemented that engineering project. And then quite innovative companies like Belzona on the next slide. Now, this company looked at the problems that engineering companies face with fractures and breakages in their equipment, which, as you know, can quite often suspend operations for days or weeks or even months on end. They have got really innovative composite gluing and fixing materials that can actually make a temporary repair to a piece of equipment which is under a lot of stress, and can get you up and running again within hours rather than within weeks. Not just products though, we've also got services. If we take a company like Babcock International, they manage the entire fleet of vehicles for Lafarge, which is a huge cement and aggregates company in the UK, US and Canada. What Babcock do, because they have hundreds of thousands of vehicles worldwide that they manage, they are experts in that. They know exactly how to manage a fleet in the optimum way, so you don't have idle equipment. They know exactly what the optimum maintenance schedules are. They even know if a piece of equipment breaks down, you think you have to pay $100,000 to get it fixed. They will know that actually that same piece of equipment has broken down in 6 other locations in the world, and it's actually a manufacturer's fault, and you can get the manufacturer to fix it free of charge. So that economy of scale is massive, and companies like Babcock have developed very innovative software and can take the whole vehicle management problem off a company's, not only off a company's problem sheet, but also off their balance sheet, which is great if you're an exploration company and with all the cash flow issues. A couple of companies now that I'm going to spend a little bit longer on, and some of you will have heard me talk about these before, because I think they have absolutely enormous potential as game changers here in Northern Ontario, are 2 airship companies. The first one, Hybrid Air Vehicles. They were very, very popular at the PDAC conference last week in Toronto. They have an airship which is up and running. They're just negotiating with the US Department of Defense to start being able to promote this as a commercial possibility. But this aircraft the current one can carry 15 to 20 tons. It can take off without needing a runway. It's got a hovercraft base, so it can land on snow, ice, water or land, and is capable of delivering 15 tons of equipment pretty much anywhere you'd like. And you're not short of, one thing you're not short of in Northern Ontario is lakes. This thing can land on a lake anywhere near where you need equipment or supplies delivered, and it's a real potential game changer, not only for delivery of supplies to remote communities, for construction materials or prefabricated buildings for mines or drilling areas, but also we're looking closely at whether a larger version of this could actually bring concentrated ores out of somewhere like the Ring of Fire and completely remove the need to build road or rail infrastructure. Very exciting possibility that. And another airship company, this is slightly more further down the road. They don't have an operating model yet. This is Varialift. Some of you will be familiar with them. They are looking at 50-ton, 250-ton, and even 3,000-ton airships. They are currently looking for investors, but again, these are slightly different to hybrid air in that they have vertical takeoff and landing capability. They compress the helium and sink, and then decompress it and rise, and they can do that completely noiselessly if you're passing an area where noise pollution is a problem. Again, very much focused on the Canadian market, because this is where you have the money, you have the requirement to access difficult to get to parts of the north of the country, and this enormous mining opportunity such as the Ring of Fire. I'll just cover another couple of companies and then wrap up. We've got a company called Telestack, which has got some great technologies for use in open pit mining, conveyors, telescopic conveyors, and reclaim hoppers and the rest of it, doing a lot of business across the whole world. We've got Robertson geologging, very, very innovative technology that goes on the end of a drill bit and can characterize the rocks, can do a lot of the data logging without the manual intervention that's typically needed, and give you very rapid characterization of the drill core. Companies like Wardell Armstrong, some of you will have heard of them. They're pretty much a soup to nuts mining engineering consultancy company, again working in markets all around the world and with a great depth of expertise. And finally, I'll talk about British Geological Survey. These are very highly innovative, government-funded research organisation, but which has a commercial wing which anyone can have access to, and they pretty much cover any geological service that you might require. So that's a very quick run through what we've got to offer. What I would say is please spread the message that we're running this campaign. We're open to approaches from Canadian companies, both who are interested in expanding worldwide in partnership with a British company, but also interested in importing some of that technology and working together with British companies here to grow their businesses. If we look at the last slide, that will give you some connections and some contacts. But Dana and I will be here for the rest of the conference, and please feel free to come up to us and pass our names around liberally. Thank you very much.